Alright, what's good YouTube? Coney here, and today we're looking at the strangest GameCube controllers of all time, which was paired with one of, if not the strangest gaming experiences that the Nintendo GameCube offered. A literal walking simulator, and the associated game, Ohenro-san Hoshin no Dojo. But, unlike the majority of Nintendo's games in the early 2000s, which were targeted towards kids, this game, Ohenro-san Hoshin no Dojo, took a different approach. It was designed for elderly gamers. Released on April 24th, 2003, in Japan only, in conjunction with its two associated controllers, Inro-kun, the pedometer GameCube controller, and Botan-san, the walking mat controller, which were intended to be used in conjunction with the game. Ohenro-san Hoshin no Dojo is a virtual tourism and walking simulator based on the Ohenro Pilgrimage, a 1,400-kilometer journey across the 88 temples of the Shikoku region of Japan. But, due to the disc size of the GameCube, only 23 of the temples on the route are represented in the GameCube version, with a shortened 124-kilometer journey. Fun fact, the GameCube discs, the mini DVD-based discs, were only capable of holding 1.5 gigabytes worth of storage. By comparison, PlayStation 2 and Xbox, also 6th generation consoles, both use 8.5 gigabyte dual-layer DVDs. The PS2, the undisputed dominator of the market at the time, and still the best-selling game system of all time, but the GameCube's smaller game sizes did allow for faster loading times. Fun fact, part of the reason Nintendo used a different disc was to combat piracy. Typical Nintendo. And yep, you heard me right, this game is literally a virtual tourism and walking simulator. No, not like that. It's quite literally a walking simulator. A walking simulator in which you were to traverse the Shikoku Pilgrimage by foot, and also visiting various temples on the island. And released alongside the game were two unique GameCube controllers, which were used to control your player. Now, before we get to the details of the controllers, we need to first go over some quick history and information on the pilgrimage that the game is based on. As I previously stated, the Shikoku Pilgrimage is a multi-site pilgrimage of 88 temples associated with the Buddhist monk Kukai, on the island of Shikoku, which, fun fact, is the smallest and least populated of the 4 main islands of Japan. Considering that Hoshin no Dojo only covers the first 23 of 88 temples on the pilgrimage, the contents of the game remain within the boundaries of the Awa province of Shikoku, one of the 69 provinces from ancient Japan, which, nowadays, is simply known as Tokushima Prefecture, one of the 47 prefectures of Japan. This can be seen in part of the game's full title, the rest of which we'll now get into. Henro is a Japanese word for pilgrim, and the locals along the route call those who undertake the pilgrimage Ohenro-san. So, the first part of the title of the game simply means pilgrim. As for the translation of the name, I can't figure out what Hoshin no Dojo translates to. Maybe Seal of Faith? I don't know. But the rest of it is Shikoku Pilgrimage Experience Game, Ohenro-san, or Pilgrim, Hoshin Dojo, Awa Province. As we see later in the game, the pilgrims, or Ohenro-san, are recognizable by their white clothing, sedge hats, and walking sticks. And this pilgrimage is traditionally completed by foot, but obviously, nowadays, some pilgrims use cars, bikes, etc. Though, as in the game, as we'll soon see, we followed the traditional method of completing the pilgrimage by foot. The standard walking course is approximately 1,200 kilometers long and can take anywhere from 30 to 60 days to complete. But, in the game, the 23 temples only cover 124 kilometers of that journey, and, as we can see in a promotion from the time, it states, for a person with a total of 124 kilometers and a stride length of 50 centimeters, the pilgrimage takes 248,000 steps, which, I guess is fair, given the elderly are less nimble than the average person. Now, you're probably curious, how is this journey and the required steps to be completed in-game? While Ohenro-san could be enjoyed on a conventional GameCube controller, it was intended to be played with its two unique controllers, which both sported the compatible GameCube controller port. Botan-san, the walking pad style controller, was used to control your character and simulate walking, as its two bottom buttons, the blue button and yellow button, emulated the L and R buttons, for your left and right feet respectively, while the top red button served as your A button, to interact with the environment or check the map. So, if you opted to play on a conventional game controller, the game was simply controlled with 3 buttons. Fun fact, Botan-san's name is a play on words, as Botan means and sounds like button in Japanese, but san can be interpreted as meaning the number 3, button 3, or as the Japanese suffix, making it Mr. Button. And in order to complete the game, you had to complete the aforementioned 248,000 steps, but the other controller, the pedometer controller, Inro-kun, could be used in your day-to-day life to track your IRL steps, which could then be transferred to your game to further advance your progress. It came with a clip, so it could be clipped onto the waist of your pants, and it obviously had a compatible GameCube port. But, according to one article, it could only be plugged into port 4, which we can see displayed on the back of the game's packaging, and according to one Amazon review from 2003, the pedometer also calculated burnt calories. It stated, it also calculates your calorie consumption and amount of exercise, so you can enjoy it not only as a game, but also for daily health management. As I previously mentioned, this game was designed for the elderly, and the idea was that Ohenro-san would allow them to take a virtual pilgrimage to many of Shikoku's temples that the elderly might not otherwise be able to visit, via high-res photos, at least for the time, though, even for the early 2000s, this software was not particularly impressive. Melee was released in 2001, 2 years before Ohenro-san. As one comment on a YouTube playthrough of the game puts it, this is a game that could have been for Sega Mega CD in 1993. not for the Nintendo GameCube in 2003. And while I agree with Rouge the Bat Lover 9952, this game was intended for a different audience of gamers that have lower expectations than the average young Nintendo fan. And the various marketing surrounding this game can prove Nintendo's different approach and its new target audience. For example, on one website promoting the game at the time, it states, not only can it be enjoyed at home, but it can also be used as a communication tool at welfare facilities. Basically, it is assumed that the target audience is the elderly, so even those who do not have physical strength can enjoy it at a reasonable pace. And walking is good for the health, and it's described as a travel simulation game that you can easily experience while staying at home. So, with this release, we can see the beginnings of Nintendo's ventures into exercise-related gaming. So, Ohenro-san, Hoshino Dojo's walking pad controller, Botan-san, and the pedometer controller, Inro-kun, both encourage fitness, as they rewarded you with in-game progress, and they arguably influenced later Nintendo products. But back to the game and how it functions, and how are you supposed to get your exercise as an elderly gamer back in Japan in 2003. And I don't understand Japanese, but as this game was only released in Japan, in Japanese, I obviously can't understand everything, though I did my best to translate some of the game's phrases through Google Translate's handwriting function. That's actually part of what took me so long to make this video. So, if you've enjoyed the video so far, a like would be much appreciated, or, more importantly, subscribe to the channel for more Kony content, as I'm on the road to 500 subscribers, and as only 1% of my viewers are subscribed to my channel. But, back to the game and how it functions. For further specifics of how the game is to be played, at the start, you're asked to input some personal info such as your name, age, height, weight, stride length, etc. Presumably, so it can track health-related stats through both your IRL and in-game steps. Following this intro cutscene, where it starts you off at Ryozenji Temple, a historical and common starting point for the pilgrimage, there are basically two parts to the game: exploring the 23 temples and traveling between said temples, walking and getting your steps in accordance with the real landscape, the in-game distance between each temple varies, and as we can see, the shortest distance is between temples 14 and 15, while the longest distance can be found between temples 12 and 13. But first, let's look at the walking part of the game. As you can see, your progress is displayed on the top right of the screen, showing your remaining steps until the next temple. Now, one complaint many gamers have had over the years pertains to the game's graphics, as, quite frankly, this game is basically just a slideshow of images. The game displays a series of still photographs, which slowly zoom in as they slowly fade to the next pictures you progress, or walk, through the game. Now, to be fair, the pictures that they use are pretty nice. As one player claims, the scenery you pass is the old side of Japan, with breathtakingly beautiful views. As you slowly pass through the countryside, you'll see so many sights. Then there's the amazing scenery of inside the temples. But, regardless of this, the presentation is still lackluster for the time, 2003, as obviously didn't use 3D models, as was popular and new at the time, or didn't even have FMV, pre-recorded video, that may have served better for the game. As one player puts it, I understand why it was done this way, but it's not impressive, and it really doesn't give the impression of walking from place to place. When I say it's a slideshow, that's all it feels like. There's no sensation of movement at all. Again, it's made for an older, new audience of gamers that have lower visual expectations. And as you can see, our three inputs during the walking section are simply walk, walk, and map. On the other hand, while you're at the temples, there are a few things to do at each one. First, and most importantly, you are to have your Ohenro journey stamped with the temple seal, each one being unique to its temple, and without these you cannot progress to the next temple. Also, in each temple, there are prayer slips for you to find and candles for you to light. Aside from this, you can take part in prayers at the altars, do some reading, and you can even bring up a map in case you miss anything. Every temple has something different to see. Lastly, as the promotion of the game puts it, you'll meet various people and feel the warmth of the local people. So, the goal of the game is to explore the island of Shikoku as an Ohenro, or pilgrim, on your pilgrimage, while visiting all 23 temples on the 124-kilometer route that the GameCube disc offers. Now, we can look at the prices of the various box sets released with the game and its different controllers, as it was shockingly one of the most expensive gaming bundles of its time. The game itself could be purchased as a standalone item for 8,800 yen. Inro-kun and Botan-san could also be purchased as standalone items for 5,800 and 6,800 yen respectively. The basic set could be purchased for 12,800 yen, which included both the game and the pedometer, Inro-kun. Lastly, and most expensive, was a 3-piece set, including the game, Inro-kun, and Botan-san for a whopping 18,800 yen. For reference, the Char Gundam GameCube box set sold for 18,300 yen retail, 500 yen less than the 3-piece set. Now, interestingly, the price of these items today is difficult to evaluate. It's due to both the controllers and game's obscurity. The prices are quite high on eBay. As we can see here, the game alone is asking $200. The box set with the game and Inro-kun, the pedometer, is asking $481. Botan-san, by itself, without any box, is asking $500. A full 3-piece set is asking $900, and insanely, a mint condition basic set, which again includes the game and Inro-kun, are asking $2,590. But no items related to Ohenro-san have yet to be sold on eBay, so these are all simply just asking prices. I was unable to find how many of these controllers were manufactured, and it strangely doesn't even seem to be sought after by collectors. But I believe this to be because most collectors don't even know that these items exist. Hell, it wasn't even listed on the console variation website, which, so far in my research, has said pretty much every other controller I can think of in its database. Now, I'm not here to hate on the game. If anything, I'm a fan for absolutely no good reason. I fuck with this guy. It honestly has a cute art style where applicable, and, though limited, I do enjoy the sound effects that the game has to offer. But, the price point for the technology seems kinda wild to me. Though, given that Panasonic was known for expensive GameCube products that didn't sell well at the time, and as a result have high value, this kinda makes sense. And yep, I said Panasonic. As this game was actually developed under Pinchange, Panasonic Innovative Navigator, a subsidiary of Panasonic, not Nintendo. Though, this is still an officially licensed Nintendo controller. You can see the Pinchange logo on the bottom of Botan-san, and at the start of the Ohenro-san game. But, here's a quick history lesson on Panasonic and the GameCube. So, in contrast with what our nostalgia remembers, the GameCube did not perform well in comparison to its competitors, as GameCube not only lacked its online capabilities, but also could not play DVDs in an era where DVD players were extremely relevant, while the PS2, for example, did. And, as we previously mentioned, the GameCube couldn't even fit the standard-sized DVD disc, so Nintendo needed a GameCube console that could play DVDs, and compete with its competitors. This is where Panasonic comes in. While the GameCube was released in Japan on September 14th, 2001, prior to this, in 1999, in the GameCube's early development, Nintendo struck a deal with Matsushita, the company that owned, and then ultimately rebranded to Panasonic. In this deal, of the Matsushita-Nintendo alliance, Matsushita was made the sole producer of the GameCube's optical disc technology, as they were tasked with developing, manufacturing, and supplying Nintendo with the DVD disc drive for their GameCube, as we can see in this article from 2001. And yeah, we can easily tell it's from 2001. The GameCube was Nintendo's first disc-based console, following the cartridges of the N64, which were less accessible to developers. Importantly, through this deal, Nintendo licensed the GameCube's gaming tech to Matsushita, this being the reason why Ohenro-san's controllers are Nintendo licensed products. Another goal of the Matsushita-Nintendo alliance was to enable the two companies to explore various ways of extending Nintendo's GameCube technology and Matsushita's DVD technology to other products. And thus, Nintendo sanctioned Matsushita's development of the Panasonic Cube, a GameCube which could play DVDs, though it did not solve Nintendo's dilemma, as it sold poorly and was discontinued in 2003, 2 years after its initial release in December of 2001. And yes, packaged with the console was the equally rare Panasonic Cube GameCube controller, which we did take a brief look at in my prehistory of the GameCube video. Fun fact, unlike all the other conventionally shaped GameCube controllers, while it was licensed by Nintendo, it's technically not a first-party controller as it wasn't distributed by Nintendo, but instead by Panasonic. Unlike the PS2, which was a gaming system that could also play DVDs, the Panasonic Cube was more of a DVD player that could also function as a gaming system, as you had to toggle the machine between DVD mode and GameCube mode. Also, it retailed at 41,000 yen, making it much more expensive than buying both a GameCube and a DVD player. Yeah, another crazy GameCube price from Panasonic. Following this Pinchange, a subsidiary of the parent company, released Ohenro-san Hoshino Dojo, with its two strange controllers as we know, and high price point. So, again, while its hardware was not developed by Nintendo, just like the Panasonic Cube and its controller, it was officially licensed by Nintendo. So, overly ambitious once again, this was Panasonic's second flop with the GameCube, but it does have its place in history. Now, as you might know, I'm a long-time, try-hard, competitive Melee player, and if you're into GameCube controllers, you likely know about Melee's modding scene. Someone even modded the guitar pedal to work as a C-stick down input, which is a strong defensive technique in competitive Melee, which led me to think, yo, this thing would be broken as hell as an extra controller in Melee. If you had 3 defensive options mapped out, C-stick down, jump, and shield. But thankfully, these controllers are too rare for that to ever matter. Lastly, while one of the reviewers of the game claimed it's one of the most obscure and weirdest and wonderful GameCube games you can get, it's like a virtual holiday in Japan. Yeah. Though, another writer said, unless you can read Japanese and you really love seeing photos of Japanese temples, I can't imagine how you get anything out of this at all. So, I'm curious as to what you think. Do you fuck with Ohenro-san? Would you like to use one of the strange walking pad or pedometer controllers, Botan-san or Inro-kun? Or do you think this game is trash? A waste of time by Panasonic that should have never been made? Feel free to let me know below, or just drop a comment to help grow the Coney family. And yeah, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed, a like would be much appreciated. But, more importantly, subscribe if you're interested in more Coney content, as I'm on the road to 500 subscribers, and as only 1% of my viewers are subscribed to my channel. If you're interested in more history of the GameCube videos, you can check them out on my channel, but with all that out of the way, thanks for watching, and iConey is live in 3, 2...
Carry the blade like Apache, high in the stars, feel like Jirachi. Been gone high, cannot stop me, I ain't so high, feel like a zombie. But I still fudge like work on me, share my brain.